Welcome to the shooting show. This week it's a difficult one for Chris Dalton as he heads out into the snow on the hunt for rodos. Plus we bring you all the latest news from the shooting world.
Luke, we just had a flying visit up to the Angus Glens. It was literally for a morning and an evening stalk. To be honest, I've just not had the chance to get up there, and I'm a bit mindful that we're a little bit light on the cull. Probably need to shoot a couple of does, couple of followers, just to bring things back in order. Probably should take about 8 to 10 deer a year off there. It's a relatively small area, but like I said, pressure work and all the rest of it, then you've not actually got up there. So Shaz came up with me, my new cameraman, try and get a bit of something on film. Weather conditions were atrocious, as you could probably see. It was bitterly cold, and we're at the end of probably a week's real cold snap, first of the winter, so it was certainly challenging. Initially we got the evening session out, very cold, bitterly cold. We'd been doing some work up at Kinnaird a few days before, similar sort of conditions really, very difficult, very cold, biting sort of frost, keen, probably -5, -6. It was like walking on cornflakes. So we got out in the evening, and to be honest, we saw probably 6 or 7 deer, which under ordinary conditions we may well have been able to get into, but absolutely impossible on those conditions. We were just crunching away, even on just the flat meadow land. It was just so noisy, and any deer that we got anywhere near were aware of us. As you probably see on the footage, that there were a couple of deer kind of looking at us, and that was from 250 yards. So they were probably skylined anyway, but no chance of an approach. So we kind of sacked the evening outing, went back and got warm, and then sort of made a plan. Hopefully the wind was supposed to pick up, and there was a little bit of thaw due to set in, so we were hoping for better conditions. And we'd also been able to see where the deer were the night before, so good chance we could probably pick 1 or 2 of them up. Unfortunately, the wind had changed direction, so plan A became plan B, and we had to do a fairly long kind of loop to get down to the bottom edge of a valley. My thoughts were that it would be relatively sheltered down there. It would be possibly out of the wind, and I think if I was any roe, or any self-respecting sensible roe, would probably be feeding down in the valley bottom, where the stream had kept the frost off a little bit, and also out of that biting wind. So we actually set off. It was quite dark when we set off to get into position, the bottom edge of the valley, and then we could follow the stream up, and that would bring us into a long kind of gully below a plantation where I knew there'd been some deer. So hopefully we could get somewhere where we might be able to get an approach into a reasonable distance. Okay, that's the difficulty of moving in conditions like this. It's like walking on cornflakes. Couldn't have shot that anyway, because that's a really nice buck, but he was laid down in the gorse bushes, jumped up. He did actually present very briefly in the gorse, but it's a bit risky because he's close to the skyline, so the shot wasn't really on. But as I said, it was a buck anyway, so, and he's a good one, so he lives to fight another day. We'll leave him till next year. Plan worked very well. We got along the gully. We managed to gain a little bit of height, and we could see actually 3 deer that were kind of out in a sheltered part of a meadow with no cattle on it, no stock on it. A little bit of grass flushing through, and it had caught the afternoon sun, what little bit there was, so there was a lot less frost on it. So that's obviously where the deer were feeding, and we had a relatively easy approach. We kind of drop out of sight and then cover a bit of dead ground and pop up on a mound, and hopefully if the deer stayed roughly where they were, we'd have had a relatively easy shot off the bipod. But roe being roe, everything perfect, fairly quick approach, got into position, crawled up above the mound, and no sign of them. So Lord knows where they went, but we couldn't find them. So I suspect they may just have finished doing what they were doing, finished feeding, wandered off and laid down in some cover somewhere. So So that was that. So we're back to plan B again. So we dropped back down into the valley. By now we were kind of halfway along it, and we could progress further up and look across to where some gorse bushes and the plantation I mentioned earlier was, and see if we could spot something else. We probably got another 400 or 500 yards, and again, fortunately for us, there were 3 roe again out, different 3 altogether. We got a doe and a couple of young followers. Well, probably one of them was a yearling buck actually, from the previous year, which we could see feeding in a very similar scenario. They were down below the plantation where it was sheltered, and again where the sun had caught the evening before. Again, a relatively easy approach. We just had to make another 200 or 300 yards up the valley, crawl up behind a mound, and probably a longish shot, but we were hoping if they stayed where they were, we'd be looking at a shot of about 160. When everything went according to plan, nicely got up into position, got the bipod deployed, and whilst the deer were they were obviously aware something was wrong, because they started to drift back in towards the deer fence woodland, kind of working away from us. So I thought they might kind of disappear underneath the fence. There's a bit of stock fence and then a bit of a gully, and then there's a deer fence, and we actually subsequently learned that there's a gap in the deer fence, which is where the deer are going in and out, which we will obviously need to have to repair. But we did manage to get into a position to take a shot. Long shot, to be honest, but I mean, I'm fairly practiced with using the rifle at those sort of ranges, so probably close on 300 yards to the first one. So I shot the first one, which was the middle one of the trio, which probably ran about 15 yards and then dropped kind of out of sight. One of the other deer ran left and actually came across back in front of us, so it was a rapid redeployment of camera, and actually managed to take the second one of the 3, and we did get that nicely in shot. That fortunately was clear, and it's a heart-lung shot. You can see that. You can see the reaction to shot, classic reaction to shot, and they kind of ran about 25-30 yards back down towards us. And rather than filming the recovery of both of the deer, because by that time we were both frozen and there's only so many times you want to see me fetching a deer in, we actually just concentrated on the deer that was in the open. Yeah, what Shaz is picking up now on camera is the way that we actually approach. The wind's blowing from behind us here, looking down the valley. So we did a big loop around, came to the back of the knoll that you can see in shot, and then there's some dead ground down below. So we were able to get into the dead ground and come up out of sight all along the valley bottom, below this cover crop. And what you're looking at now is the firing point. So we were just able to come up the back of that ridge line and just get the bipod set kind of almost on the highest point that you're looking at. And from where we're standing now, it's actually 180 yards. The deer was probably 210. It ran 30 yards, as you probably see, back down before it dropped dead. So that's kind of what we did this morning. I've done the suspended gralloch den, which is on a previous edition of Shooting Show, but there are little bits that were missed, and a lot of people contact me and so they're not sure quite how they get from this stage, where we've basically got the pelvic bone intact and we've got the udder, sorry, we've got the bladder and the anus, how we get to the open pelvic bone state and able to lift everything forward. Well, basically you need a bone saw. The type of bone saw is preferable without that kind of lug on the end, because that stops you sawing, and it's a bit using it like a tennis saw basically, which is it's a flat cut. You've got to be careful of the bladder, but basically it's a flat cut, and all I'm doing is applying gentle pressure in a nice straight line and just let the saw do the work until I've gone through the pelvic bone. Going nearly there now, and you'll hear it when it goes there. Right, okay, so now you can see what I've done is I've just spread the legs a little wider, and it just shows you can make good use of a deer fence. It just shows you the deer not supposed to be in there and the gap's just up there. So use your finger a little bit now, just get your finger in there just to free off. Just free everything off around the back, carefully lifting the bladder out. It's quite full, and all I'm doing now is just easing up, easing up, and basically now you can see that I can cut a little V cut and then lift that forward, and then there you go, perfectly clean. And the other thing you can do, you can start to do part of your inspection. You know, you've got the spleen there, A spleen, if you remember, is the organ that we eliminate anthrax by. If that was grossly enlarged or distended, then that would be an anthrax indicator, but that's a lovely healthy spleen. It's about half the size of the liver, sort of plum coloured. You can see the diaphragm skirt, which I'm going to take out in a minute to finish the gralloch. You've got one of the kidneys there staring you in the face, covered in fat. I mean, you don't have to be an expert on carcass examinations to see how healthy this deer is. Stomach's full. I mean, beautiful condition. I mean, look at all the fat on there. I mean, that's a really super animal. The easiest way to take the front leg off is to bend the leg against itself like that and follow the line of the leg, but keep the angle of the knife exactly as per. A lot of people then do this, or they kind of do this, and it's going to put you in the wrong place. Follow the line and keep that line, okay, and then just, that'll put you right onto the flat joint. And I'm not trying to cut the bone, all I'm doing is freeing off the fur. That's all I'm doing, freeing off the fur, and because I've put the cut in the right place, now when I twist, it's easy. And then don't forget on your examination, one of the things we're looking for obviously is foot and mouth, and so we're checking the cloves of the hooves. Carcass is virtually completely eviscerated. I'm going to take the head off. We're going to do the examination of the organs. You see the shot damage in there, placement pretty reasonable I think. Entry exit right on the money, just through the heart. So even though the deer ran, it jumped, classic, you saw the reaction to shot, it was a classic heart lung shot, and ran still probably about 30 yards, just the adrenaline going, before it kind of dropped in the open. So that's a nice carcass, really well presented, anybody could be proud of that. Just going to finish by hocking it head off, and then that's going into the Apex, my favourite sack, to carry that back to the vehicle. Browning 6.5, fitted with my favourite Swarovski scope. New rifle this actually, probably shot, I don't know, 20-30 deer with it, so it's pretty new, out of the box, but like any Browning, accurate as anything. So safety aspect, double check. Rifle's clear before we go home, which it is. We'll put the magazine back on, just for ease of carrying. And that's us all ready for the trek back to the car. And then deer recovered back home for breakfast. So a successful outing in the morning after a very unsuccessful outing in the evening. But that's what stalking's all about.
And we'll be back out with Chris very soon. And now, the shooting show news.
This is the shooting show news. Amber Hill has won another medal on the world stage. She grabbed bronze at the ISSF World Cup in Guadalajara. She finished the final on 42 hits out of 50, with six-time Olympic medalist Kim Rode going on to take the gold and equal the finals world record in the process. It's Amber's second World Cup medal, both of them won in Mexico, and bodes well as we head towards the Commonwealth Games next month. The firearms licensing service in Scotland still needs to improve. That's what the Inspectorate has concluded after polling 1,000 people on how they felt their applications and renewals had gone. Overall, the report said licensing had been more consistent since Police Scotland was formed 5 years ago, but many people still had concerns about the speed and efficiency of the service and thought firearms officers would benefit from more training. One area highlighted for improvement was the processing of visitor permits for those coming to Scotland to shoot or stalk deer. Entries are open for the Purdy Awards 2018. The prestigious awards go to game shoots and estates that can demonstrate a strong link with their local community and explain how the countryside benefits from their activities. Anyone can win, irrespective of size or budget. This is not just about big shoots. Download the entry form from purdy.com. And finally, the British Shooting Show may barely have finished for this year, but organisers are already looking ahead to 2019. After a successful debut at the NEC, the show will stay at the venue and is likely to expand into another hall for 2019. This means even more exhibitors and bigger stands, and show organisers said parking will still be free. Save the dates now, the 15th to the 17th of February. That was the Shooting Show news.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And if you're not a member of Basque, it's time to join now. Basque, looking after your sport, looking after you. This has been The Shooting Show.